Today's story from Mark is a very familiar one, right? The miracle of the stilling of the storm. Quite appropriate after our storms this weekend. The disciples are scared. And these guys are experienced fishermen, so you know that this was a big one if they were scared. The boat starts to fill with water, and Jesus is asleep. The disciples here have not figured out who Jesus is quite yet. They call him teacher, and they follow him from place to place, but they don't grasp completely his identity. So they cry out to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And this is a very familiar cry to us in our lives, but also throughout the Old Testament and especially in the Psalms. We hear a lot of cries to God. Where is God while we suffer? But then Jesus wakes, stills the storm. He says, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? You've been following me now for a while, but you still don't really believe." Now, after Jesus stills the storm, it says that the disciples were filled with great awe. Now, this can be more literally translated to say, they feared a great fear. It doesn't sound very good in English, which is why it was changed to great awe. But they feared a great fear. So, were the disciples more afraid during the storm or after it was calmed? Were they more afraid when they thought they were going to drown or after they see that they are in the presence of God? Now, we tend to throw around the term miracle a lot. Miracle Whip, right? Or, the puppy is finally house-trained, it's a miracle. We've kind of domesticated the idea of a miracle. So what would happen if we encountered a real miracle? There's a book called Peace Like a River by Leif Enger. The main character says at the beginning, "People fear real miracles because they fear being changed." The disciples were afraid of the storm, of course, but afterwards, they're more afraid. They're afraid maybe of what they've gotten themselves into, afraid of moving into the unknown, afraid of being changed by God. And here, Jesus is taking the disciples on a journey, physical and figurative. He says, "Let's go to the other side of the sea." He doesn't ask them if they want to go to the other side of the sea. They might not have gone if he asked them. They might have said, "Well, there might be a storm today. Let's discuss it. Let's make 2 subcommittees to discuss what time of day is the best way to get to the other side," and then they wouldn't actually do it. He doesn't tell them about the storm. He doesn't tell them that once on the other side, they're going to be in a foreign land, that they're going to encounter a man possessed with a legion of demons that will be cast out into pigs and run off a cliff. If he had told them all this, they probably would have stayed home. Because people never change. People like comfort. We like familiarity. But Jesus doesn't let them think about it. He just takes them. So they get in the boat. This boat ride that's going to change their lives forever. And Jesus knew that they would make it across. And he knew what was waiting on the other side. A grand, life-changing adventure. All they had to do was get in that boat, which is often the hardest part. People fear the unknown, change. Not like little changes like getting your hair cut, but actually I do know a lot of people that really don't like to change their hair. I'm talking about the kind of change that following Jesus brings, the kind of change that encountering God brings. We all have a calling from God to do something. But most of the time, I think we would rather stay home, do nothing. No thanks. I don't want to go on a boat ride today. Now the rest of the quote from earlier goes like this. People fear miracles because they fear being changed, though ignoring them will change you also. So either way, something's going to change. So why not follow where Jesus calls and get in that boat? Following Jesus does not promise us a storm-free life or a life without any suffering. He never promises that. The promise of this story, rather, is that there is something on the other side that's worth getting to, but you will never see it if you don't go on that journey. And, no, get in the boat. Okay. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.